Morning. Thanks for joining me again on another hike. And this morning we're going on a little journey through some industrial history. I've just taken a train up to Mills Newtown station and dropped down, just coming behind Mellor Mill, and dropping down onto the just get you out of the sunlight, just dropping down to the River Goyt. Just as it joins, you can just see behind me there the Millennium Walkway that goes up into the Tors, which I think you've seen on other videos of mine. But we're going across the Goyt and then turning left. And our walk takes us down along the Goyt, through Strines to Mellor, and then we'll climb up and pick up the Peak Forest Canal to take us back to Disley eventually, which is the station back towards Manchester from which I got off. And loads of history along the way, so why not join me and see what we see. So the walk is probably somewhere between 9 and 10 miles. I'll confirm that when we get back. And it's not a hill walk by any means, as I say, it just follows the rough course of the river. And initially we start off with a nice country section through country park called Mellor Bottom, and yeah, it's very pleasant. And then well, it's a mixture of stuff really. You'll hear a name come up probably a few times in this video, a gentleman called Samuel Oldknow, and he was one of the major northwest entrepreneurs in the cotton age in the late 1700s and beyond. And I'll tell you a bit more about him later, but it's kind of a journey through how this area must have changed over the years. It must have been all pretty much fields and farmland before that era, and Samuel Oldknow had a big part in how it changed. Quite an idyllic spot, isn't it? And only just below big town of New Mills. So we're just coming to the end of this stretch now, Mellor Bottom, and then we're just going to take a right when we get down near the bridge and head up to a little hamlet, I think it is, called Brook Bottom. And we're kind of following the I think it's on the Goyt Way and the Midshires Way, and we just follow that round and then drop down towards Strines. So after climbing up those steps up out of the country park, just come up, cross the bridge over the railway. That's the main Manchester to Sheffield line, and then just straight across and up a little track called was it Hakefold Lane or Road. It's only a little track. Whew. Considering it's not supposed to be a hill walk, that's a bit of a slog up from the country park, but some nice views over towards that'll be Disley, and then up you can see the upper reaches of Lime Park and the cage standing prominent on top of the hill there. Just give you a close-up of that. So as that lane climbs up past a couple of houses, it eventually becomes just a tiny little rocky track. Then you come out on a little minor lane. Turn left, don't go straight across. You'll see a bench there just to go past. And we start dropping down again. This lovely pub down here. It's only 10:30 in the morning, so I can't try it. We take a left just in front of it. And this nice shady little bridleway should take us all the way down to Strines railway station. So down to Strines station now, straight under the railway again, and we're looking for a track just to the right down here. Across the railway yet again, and then I think we skirt along beside it more or less for a way now. As we drop down to Mellor. So another little landmark, go past Greenclough Farm, and then you'll just see a little path to your left. Take that rather than heading up the hill from the laneway. Under the railway once again. This time in a little tunnel, and then we drop down to pick up the River Goyt again. Hello there. You alright? Okay. Aren't you nice, you? Yeah. You're little, aren't you? Right, so instead of talking to horses, let's get back to Mr. Samuel Oldknow. He was born in 1756 and lived till 1829, and I think he was originally an apprentice in his youth down Nottingham way in the textile industry, but one of the major skills he developed, as we just come down to the River Goyt again, one of the major skills he developed was in raising investment, raising funds. So he became an entrepreneur in the textile industry, and he was a very important man around these parts. He built this huge mill at Mellor, which no longer stands, and he had at least a couple more. He had one in Stockport on Hillgate, and another down in Eton Mersey, and maybe some more, and loads of other supporting things as well, like lime kilns and transshipping warehouses and all sorts of stuff, like, you know. And this river, the Goyt, was the lifeblood of his enterprises. He built this massive mill at Mellor, and he actually diverted the River Goyt through channels to run underneath the mill to power the mill, and then, you know, obviously later fuel steam engines and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, it was very important to him. He was also a big investor. The mill itself apparently struggled to make much of a profit, so he's always on the lookout for things to make it more profitable. And he was a big investor in the Peak Forest Canal that extended up from the Macclesfield Canal. He also invested in the Peak Forest Tramway before the canal, and yeah, that obviously brought lime down to his lime kilns and all sorts. It was all linked in, but he's, you know, a big investor. But he ended up to his eyeballs in debt. So eventually he ended up mortgaging out Mellor Mill to, is it Samuel Oldknow Jr.? I don't think Samuel's right. I'll put it up on the screen anyway. And so that they then had a controlling interest in the mill. That was actually Richard Arkwright Jr. And around about this time, Britain was entering into a period of war with France, and the bottom dropped out of the muslin market, and that affected his profits even more. So he was up to his eyeballs in debt and really struggling, and yeah, that led to him taking out this mortgage with the Arkwrights, and then eventually on his death the mill passed over to the Arkwrights, and that's where it gets a little bit more interesting. So behind me you have a lovely old packhorse bridge over the River Goyt. Now we don't need to cross it for this particular route, but I've brought you over it just to show you it. And not long after the Arkwrights had taken over this not so profitable mill, it mysteriously burns down. Now obviously there's no proof of anything, but if you kind of take in the fact that very shortly afterwards they had the great idea with the arrival of the railways through here that it would make a great place for a Victorian leisure resort. So they turned the mill pools, which we'll get to a little bit later, and removed all the remains of the mill and turned the mill pools into fishing and boating area. And there were tea rooms and penny arcades and all manner of things. And in its heyday, they reckon there was as many as 20,000 people had come down a day. It was absolutely huge. They renamed it all. They needed to come up with some sort of snappy name, and they just invented Roman lakes. And this packhorse bridge became Roman Bridge. Got nothing at all to do with any Romans, you know. It was it was built in the late 1700s by our friend Mr. Oldknow, but it was all done for the kind of the marketing sort of thing. It was really successful. Now, you know, whether the burning down of the mill and the resort quickly following anything to do with each other or not, I really don't know, but you've got to wonder, haven't you? But anyway, all of a sudden it was making a huge profit, and we'll head back over the river, down along the river now, and see the Roman lakes. The splendid octagonal house behind me is called Floodgates House, and that was built by Oldknow as well, and he hoped that this would become a turnpike road and he'd be able to charge tolls. I think he did charge some tolls, but it never became a main route. Yeah, built 60 years before the railway arrived, and slightly dwarfed it. But what an appropriate name, with the thundering weir just behind me. Beautiful place. Anyway, back under the railway again. Well, it's not easy to get a very good view of the lake with all the undergrowth around it, and I think that's intentional because it's the whole private functions and weddings and all of that sort of thing here. I think they have open days as well. But yeah, this is where the Victorians and Edwardians would have come in their finery to do a little bit of rowing and enjoy a day out and a cream tea. It's hard to imagine now. I believe it was kind of open a resort up until the 1950s, but it became increasingly a target for late night vandals coming to try and rob the penny arcades and all of that sort of thing. So I think eventually it got more and more difficult, and they just closed it apart from the fishing, and now it's as I say, open as some sort of a venue. But there you have it. It's hard to say exactly where the mill would have been. A huge, great big structure, I think maybe 6 stories tall and employing about 2,000 people. But yeah, that was all happening here in the late 1700s, and then beyond it became a leisure place. Right, let's crack on. So as you come down, there's another bottom mill pond. I'll try and get a better view of that, and then I've realised now that the mill and there's some exposed basement remains down here are all down at this end, so not at the previous pool that I said. Let's go and have a look at this. It looks really interesting. Looks like it might have been the wheelhouse or something. Yeah, you can see the sluice as it ran down there would have taken the water down. The wheel must have been immense because you can see the radius there going round, and then just down below there's two housings that would have had the bearings for the wheel, and then steps down on either side so you could come and service and lubricate and do all of those things that you needed to do. And then the mill would have been towering up 6 stories above us. Apparently I've just seen a board, and it was 100 years between being built and when it burnt down. And so by the time it burnt down, the floors are soaked in oil and there's cotton dust everywhere, and an absolute, accident waiting to happen. The only thing they had was plentiful water supply to put a fire out, but the fire hydrants, just by bad luck, were caught up in the heart of the blaze, so the whole place went down. Apparently this was the north spiral staircase tower, gave access to all floors of the mill, and 1 privy on each floor. Generous. Apparently they were paid, what was it, it's the equivalent of 20p a week, so 4 shillings a week for 18-hour days, and I would imagine it would have been a 6-day week, and apparently that was good going in those days. Just read on another board that the sly old bugger paid them in paper money that they could only spend at Samuel Oldknow's shop, so they could only buy goods that he sold them as well. So not great. In later years, when they brought in steam engines, this was the bed where the engines were mounted. Fascinating. You can hear some screaming in the background. There was a huge school party here a few minutes ago. I've just sussed out what these are now. So whether it's from the steam engine, sorry, the water wheel at that end, or the steam engine at this end, there would have been a drive shaft that ran down here, and these blocks down here are where the bearings for that would have sat, and then the drive for that would have been taken up on belts, presumably up to each floor, and then transferred again into shafts that ran along each floor of the mill. Right, I'm just coming up to the edge of the bottom mill pool now, where the water would have been taken out, and straight down the head race there to the water wheel. But they're using it for a bit of a kids' adventure training. They've got them out on a raft. Now obviously I won't be able to film them, so unless they get out of the way I won't be able to show you, but we'll see what I can do. Maybe they'll go in for a rest in a minute. So you might be able to hear them having fun, but I've managed to get them out of shot, and that's the bottom mill pool, all covered in nice lilies at the far end. Right, it's around about midday. I think it's a good time to stop for lunch, I think, before we head on up to the canal. Right, fed and watered. That was absolutely fascinating. I'm just going to cross over the River Goyt again, and then begin our climb up and onto the Peak Forest Canal. crossing the railway one final time. Good old climb that. Just up across Strines Road and straight up onto the Peak Forest Canal at Bridge 19 here, and there's a nice little bench which you might need, and we're just turning left along here, and then it's more or less flat along the canal, just a short climb back up to Disley. The old hat out now because the sun's peeping through and there's less shelter up here. Not bad on this stretch. Anyway, last word about Samuel Oldknow. As I mentioned earlier, he invested heavily to get this canal completed because it gave him the motorway of the day to get his goods down to Manchester and from there out to the world, and also back down the Macclesfield Canal out to the rest of the country and out to other ports. So you know, it was vital for him to be well connected, and even that didn't seem to make him massively profitable from his operation here. But yeah, all those things are linked, and the one thing that links them all together is the River Goyt. Even when you get down to his mill in Heaton Mersey, the River Mersey will have run past that, and that's the Goyt is a tributary of the River Mersey. So that River Goyt just was his well, it would have been his fortune if he wasn't so mired in debt. But yeah, that's the interesting tale of Samuel Oldknow, or at least part of it. As good as you ever get from me anyway. Some nice boats coming up. So, not too far off now, at Bridge 25, we leave the canal. Bridge 25 is a swing bridge, and start a little climb for about a kilometre back to Disley, and it'll be noisy in Disley. I'm only going across to the station, so I'll wind it up here. Turned out to be around about 9 miles, and yeah, nice little day out. That quite interesting around the mill and everything that turned out to be. I was thinking I was going to be a bit disappointed with it at first, but then when you got to that bit where the where all the foundations were exposed, yeah, it's very interesting. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed that, and if you wouldn't mind giving it the old thumbs up, maybe subscribing if you're new here, and one way or another, see you on another video very soon. Bye now, take care.